one, maybe two claps tops, but I appreciate it. Thank you. I don't know
No
if the
mic,
mic's
no mic.
Are we good enough? Bailey, can you hear me? All right, Sherman says we need the microphone. No. We'll see if the other mic is working. Are we working? Are we working? This one's working. Rick doesn't show up, and look what happens. So. All right, so our guest this evening is Ben Jenkins. Ben is a Lake Highlands product, graduated from Lake Highlands back in the early 90s. Is that nebulous enough? Okay, perfect. Where he was a multi-sport athlete, but passion was baseball. Baseball took him to Mississippi State, where he majored in design, technology, and architecture. Once he was done there, he went into the Phillies organization, played minor league baseball for a time, for coming out and going to the Art Institute of Chicago and got his master's in fine arts. After that, he started up a design firm called One Fast Buffalo back in 1999. Some of their brands that they represent and design their logos are Texas Whiskey, Nakona, and Six Sight, which a lot of us are familiar with here. Founded a distillery called Western Suns in 2011 that specializes in vodka products, and then founded Warstic, which is a baseball company, in 2012. Ben lives here in Lake Highlands with his wife Jennifer and 3 sons. So, Ben Jenkins. David.
Should have left it in.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, this is going well so far. Choke up on it?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yeah.
All right.
Go to the microphone.
Well, you remember things about my bio that I didn't, so that's good. I was like, yeah, I did that. All right, we'll see if this works. It doesn't super matter. I was just figured it's cool to show people stuff instead of look at me, which I twitch a lot, so it's better that people look here. So I was hoping to get something up on the screen, but yeah, like he said, I grew up here. I actually went to White Rock Elementary, went to Moss Haven, used to skate over there a lot. I'm as White Rock, I'm as Lake Highlands as you can get, I figure. I used to get my hair cut at the crop shop there. In fact, I got my hair cut starting there in 1976. And still get my hair cut by Denise, who's moved over, but same lady. So, very fond of the neighborhood. My wife actually, we both went to Forest Meadow Junior High. We met when we were 12. Met up again when we were 25. We've been married for 22 years. I've got 3 boys that go to, I've got a high school senior, and he's the catcher on the baseball team. I've got a sophomore who's on the football team, linebacker, and I got a little 7th grade junior high. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay, don't look at there. Don't look at here anymore. Yeah, so we moved. Let's see. I moved back. I think I live over here by White Rock. It's been like 15 years now that I've been back. So never thought I would come back, to be honest with you guys. And I love it. It's been great coming back and raising my kids here and everything like that. So I don't know why you guys are hurting for speakers so bad, but I'm happy to try to give this a shot. I told him I used to speak a lot in the creative industry. I would speak at big conferences and stuff and do a big to-do and stuff. And it was cool, man, but I honestly started not enjoying talking about myself. It feels weird. What I really want to do is I'm going to give you a super quick idea of what I've done or whatever, so that maybe there's some questions and we can get to the fun part. I love questions. I feel like maybe I can give people some insight or some bad advice. Either way, you're getting something out of it. Yeah, so I don't know as far as like growing up here, I mean, one thing that people ask, like, how did you get into the things that you get into or whatever? And it was pretty simple but not conventional in that a lot of kids here get into sports. It's still true. Like, my kid played with your kid, blah, blah, blah. Same thing, man. My dad would nurture. I played all the sports. I played baseball, football, and soccer, and all this stuff, you know. And that was a lot of my identity. But behind the scenes, I would do a lot of art and stuff with my mom, you know. So growing up, I had two sets of friends. I had all my jock friends, but I had a completely different set of friends. I had all my art friends, and I was in bands and music and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of a weird. It was cool, but like those two sets of friends didn't know each other very much. I actually still see that here today a lot, you know, like. Athletes and art don't necessarily always naturally go together, but like that's what I did, you know. So, you know, he said my passion was baseball. That's one thing I'm gonna correct you on. I like football, man. I would still say, I tell my kids playing high school football, I was a quarterback here, and I got to play like in the Saputo era and wearing the wishbone. It's still by far the most fun thing I've ever done in that 3 months of my life. I still haven't topped it, to be honest with you. It was just fun, man. So, but yeah, I was just more the size for a baseball player. So I went to, let's start this. I actually played at OU for a year. That's my first ever college home run. And then I transferred out to Mississippi State. I played for the legendary Ron Polk for 3 years. And that's kind of where I was studying architecture. They basically came up to me and said, hey, you're really good at this, but you need to quit baseball for you to continue architecture. And I was like, well, I'm here to play baseball, man. So just and a lot of kids who ask me, like, how do you do things? I think part of it is you just gotta trust your gut and you gotta go with your instinct, you know, because I thought I wanted to be an architect. That's what I thought I wanted to do. I wanted to play baseball as long as I could, just doing those things as long as I could, but I was like, I'm not quitting baseball, man. I'm here on scholarship. And I just went to the art department. My dad wasn't super happy about it, but I was painting and drawing just like I did when I was a kid. And my dad's like, what are you gonna do for a living? I'm like, I have no idea, hopefully make it baseball. But that led to, total luck, to be honest with you. I had a painting teacher who said, hey man, you're a good painter, you can do this, but you got a crazy instinct for, how do you say it? He called me crazy, but he's like, you have a special craziness for arranging things, like composition, moving things around. Like I was a kid when I grew up, like I gotta have my room like all set up perfect, you know, my closet and all this. Like, it's a hyper obsessive disorder, I'm not gonna lie. But that's when I discovered what design was. She's like, you need to go take a design class. I didn't even know what that was, to be honest with you. So just by luck and chance and following my gut, I ended up getting into design and basically instantly was like, oh, I like this. Like this clicks with my brain, right? So from that point on, I'm probably 19 years old and I started focusing, other than baseball, focusing on what designing was and trying to get good at it, you know? And then I played, at college went pretty well and I got drafted by the Phillies and I played, that's me, man, that's all. People don't believe that's me. Why would you show a picture from yourself 30 years ago? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, I played some minor league baseball, not well, pretty badly, and got kicked out pretty quick. The good thing for me was I had a lot of baseball, especially minor league players. They play 26, 27, 28, 29 years old. They don't develop another career or a path or anything like that. I knew mine was easy. Like I got cut, and I went right to the other thing that I knew, which was my art, my design, and things like that. So to delay, you see, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Like I went to grad school just to delay my adult life. I'm not gonna lie. I was 24 years old. I just got kicked out of minor league baseball, and I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do yet. I'm not refined at anything. No one would give me a job. I tell kids that too. Like, I tried to come back here and get a job, but no one would hire me for anything. So I went to grad school at the School of the Arts Institute of Chicago, which is a really great school. And I used those couple of years to kind of get more direction and figure out where I was going, you know, and ended up living on an Indian reservation for a year in South Dakota, which is a whole different story. But
We need that.
you'll see that come back.
We need that story.
It's so, oh, was it? Yeah. I mean, it's easy. I was studying some film and stuff like that, and a professor of mine was doing a documentary on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, which is a very heavy, politically heavy place. It's the poorest place on the planet. I mean, the poorest place in America. And it just kind of, I mean, you imagine it, you guys know what it's like to grow up in Lake Highlands. It's pretty, can I cuss here? No, I don't cuss. It's pretty great. It's normal, right? And we're very lucky and stuff. Being a kid from Lake Highlands and living on an Indian reservation for a year will flip your worldview upside down. That's all you need to know about it. It was like, whoa, I got it good, in a way. You know, so it kind of did shake me up in terms of like, it still affects everything I do in terms of that what I do, I try to have, I care about it. You know what I mean? I don't do a lot of things, I don't know, more than anybody I mostly know, I don't spend a lot of time doing anything I don't like or care about. And I work really hard at that. So I attribute all that to that same luck, that being able to go there and kind of be inspired creatively by that and whatever I did. There we go. So after I finished grad school, no one would still give me a job. So I started, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm trying to reflect on my life. It's been a long time. Yeah, I finished grad school, which seems like a big deal, but no one cared. And art is different, you know, like my dad's an attorney and I get that a law degree, and he finished first in class at SMU, led to a good career and this stuff. It doesn't work like that in art. It's kind of like sports. It's like, well, cool, you went there, what can you do? It's very talent-based, it's very like that. And so I really just started scrambling. I was painting people's houses that bad to try to afford my apartment. And then I luckily had some friends of friends like hire me freelance to do some logos and stuff. I mean, I'm talking about the most dirty, down and dirty freelance jobs you could get, just doing anything. And that clicked with me because I got some money, that was good. And no one would hire me anyway, so I just ran with it. And that eventually evolved into this design firm that I called One Fast Buffalo. And within a couple years, actually, that turned into a really competitively successful thing here in Dallas. I started getting good at it, and we started getting a name around town, and it was all word of mouth. We would market ourselves, but like, you know, like what I would do really is, my job really was like these guys. This is, I think this sold for $180 million last year or 2 years. I didn't get any of that. But my job, essentially, for the last 20 years doing this, and I still do some of this, is an entrepreneur like these guys will come and say, hey, I want to do a whiskey brand, and all I know is we want it Texas-based. That's it. So it has no name, no identity, no story. And you'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs come and they don't really have all that. You know, they have a business knack. They have money probably. They're like, hey, we want to start this, but like from an identity standpoint and what to call it and what to say about it, they don't know anything. So people would pay OFB to essentially figure that out. Like, because without that, these days, it ain't gonna make it. You know, like these days, it's not that hard to make things. You know, back in the 50s, this might have worked just because they were making whiskey out of Texas. Well, there's other people making whiskey out of Texas, so it's a competitive thing about, well, why this versus this, right? And so for a long, long, long time, I spent a lot of time obsessing about and learning about what branding was, right? Meaning just, I like the word identity better. You know, like, I can tell you about this guy based on his haircut and what he wears and how he holds things and stuff, and then he's different from this guy. Like, it's our outer appearance and stuff like that. And so, just by having to do it, I studied it a lot. And I learned so much for like 10 years, 10, 12 years, you know, by working with, who else is on here? Yeah, Six Site, like Steven's a buddy of mine, so I helped him figure out what this was called, and, you know, what the logo is, and that kind of stuff. And, you know, the thing that I was lucky in is that, yeah, I was a graphic designer, but I was taking it further than that, right? I was taking it into understanding what the business was about and how these things were used, and I was learning a lot from the clients about their business. And I was learning too that, one, it's hard work, and two, it's not rocket science, but it is hard work. And I think it gave me the confidence after a long time to maybe start doing that for myself, right? And that's kind of what led me to some of the other things I did. I'm trying to think, like, I did some cool stuff. I look past this stuff. I don't do it a lot anymore, but like, you know, I got to rebrand El Phoenix for the family, which was super cool because I grew up going to El Phoenix, you know. So like, I got to rebrand what that looked like. I got to work with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, and you know, just a lot of cool things. And yeah, then my first foray into like entrepreneur I guess that was an entrepreneur thing, but it was a service business, so I don't count it. I mean, no offense to service business, but like, service business is pretty easy, except for the part where you gotta work with clients, which I hate. And to be honest, about 2007, 2008, I got really burned out of doing this stuff. I love the creativity, but I admittedly I'm not a client service person. I'm not that. It's not, there's some people that like thrive on that. Like my dad, as an attorney, he loves that. I hate it. Because I just want to make the stuff. And I don't want to hear, none of you guys are my clients, right? Cool. It just was hard for me because I'm 100% into the making of the thing, but like the feedback, the uninformed feedback, just for me, it just was like, they're like, well, what if we make it purple? And I'm like, that's a dumb idea. I have Tourette's, so I say that. And you don't want to do that. So it was just things, I was like, I've been doing this for a long time, but it's like, what's next? You know what I mean? But this was a great living. I mean, I think you mentioned my trailer. So 2008, I was having kids, and I had some 3-year-olds and a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm like, I want these boys outside. I love Lake Highlands, but I want these boys outside. So 2008, economy crashes. I get rid of my office and I go completely virtual and mobile in 2008, like everybody's doing now. Where everybody works on their laptops around. I bought a 58 Airstream and I started. Is that in here? Oh yeah. Yeah, I kind of went. Sorry.
It's not doing it that much.
Yeah, I went real. I don't want to say hippie, but like. I really changed, like when I change stuff, I change it. So like we had like 15 people, I got rid of all the people. I mean, the economy was crashing, it was a good thing to do. We had to really trim down, but for me, it wasn't just surviving, it was changing everything. And so I bought this 58 Airstream and renovated it, and I started living with that, my kids, as much as I could. And my kids, therefore, living in Lake Highlands, but they all can surf, they can all fly fish, they can take, I don't know, there's just we lived on the road 4 or 5 months of a year. We definitely pushed the truancy laws of Richardson Independent School. But like I look back, and so like that became really what my family was focused on, was living together out on the road, which sounds crazy, but the reality is like my kids, I can see how independent they are and how much they can take care of themselves, and they just have a different, I don't know, they have a sense of like taking care of themselves that I totally attribute to this. So like, I highly recommend it. I don't have any money left from it, but they really benefited from it. And so that kind of led to thinking about, I like this freedom, and I like kind of controlling my own schedule, and I'm not afraid of work. So I started kind of playing with my own brands. So the first one I did was this one called Western Sun, which I think now is about 10, 12 years old. And it's a vodka distillery that I did with a college buddy who had been in, worked for Diageo and Miller Coors and stuff, so he knew his stuff. So it's like, hey man, I was like, I can hook you up with something cool to sell, then you got to do all the work. And he did, and it's killing it, like it does well. So it's the biggest, other than Tito's, it's the biggest vodka distillery in Texas. So we're hoping that's going to sell in the next couple of years. So that gave me a little confidence, like, hey, I can do things beyond the client work. And then I think people don't realize the Warstic thing to most people, because now it's emerged into the mainstream of baseball. Of course, like everything else, they think it's 2-3 years old. It's 10 years old. So it essentially was just a wood bat, baseball bat company in the beginning, where you could go online, you would customize the look of your bat, and we would make it and ship it to you. Very simple drop ship type business that I would do. And I did that for about 5 years as a hobby, and it was really meant to be like a side hobby, fun, escape from client work. And then about 2016, something like that, I kind of looked at myself and said, hey, this thing could be a real brand, like not a fun little side toy. So or I need to sell it or stop doing it. So I actually had a meeting with a big competitor named Easton. Like if you ever played baseball, Easton's been making metal bats for 50 years. I went to California to meet him and met with the CEO and all that kind of stuff. And it was essentially, the meeting went like this: really cool what you're doing, love it. Yeah, we want to buy it, and we'll give you a little bit of money. And it was a nice bit of money. But I said, well, what would I do? And he said, oh, you be out. I just got to lock down. Because I knew in an instant, one, he was afraid of it competitively. And I knew that they were just going to shut it down. And the reality with me is, like, you could tell me, I'm not really driven by money so much. I might not like it like everybody else. But like, I didn't even think about that. I just knew I'm a competitor at heart, and I'm gonna kick your ass now. Because it gave me something to like focus on and be like, all right, I'm gonna go see what I can do. And so I turned all my attention to putting everything I could into this company. I still did some client work, but I needed some investors. So my high school drummer named Brian Toomey, anybody know Brian Toomey? Anyway, I had met with him and I said, hey man, I'm looking for investors. And we were spinning ideas. He goes, oh, I met with Ian Kinsler from the Rangers the other day. Would you want to meet him? I was like, I guess. So had lunch with him and Marty Turco and basically hit it off. Ian Kinsler, like second baseman for the Rangers for a long, long time. Great guy. It pops up too much, but great guy. I told him that. Anyway, we just hit it off, and he's like, I'm in. And he became my first investor. And then the weird part was this other guy, I get hit or miss. I get, holy shit, Jack White, or I have no idea who that is, right? So, some people, he's a very well-known, he's the one that looks like, yeah. See, he's holy shit, and he's like, who's that? And I get that. Like my dad's like, who the hell is that? You know? And he's the guy that looks like Edward Scissorhands a little bit over there. He's cool with that joke, it's fun. But Ian was playing for the Tigers. Jack's a huge Tigers fan, and Jack had actually reached out to us one time before, and I told Ian that, and Ian goes, oh, I kind of know Jack a little bit. I've met him. He comes up to Tigers games, and I was like, oh, we should make Jack like a big investor, like totally joking, because that's just totally absurd, by the way. And Ian and I's personality is a little bit more like, if you don't ask, you don't get. Why not? Who cares? What's he gonna do? Say no. So Ian emailed him that night, and he calls me the next day and said, "You want to go meet Jack White in Nashville?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." And then from there, it was like we'd known each other forever. We became partners. It took about 2 months to get that deal together. Got some money to really focus on this thing and do it well. And for a year and a half, I had to figure out like, okay, now what? Because I realized, just getting funded and having money doesn't make the company grow. But we figured it out, man. So at this point, like, there's some very old competitors in my space. Easton's 60 years old, Louisville Slugger's 100 years old, DeMarini even is 40 years old. Like, we're competing against some big giants in a big, very manufacturing heavy, high-tech industry. And as of the last couple of years, we've emerged into one of the big five. We're like the new cool guy on the block that's now becoming not so new to everybody. So it's great. It was hard work, but now I'm kind of on the other side of like, we built it, it worked. It's mainstream. You can go to Dick's Sporting Goods or Academy or Shields, which I recommend. Shields is really cool. And you can buy, the things that we make, So, but the same thing, all I did in my mind was I created another brand, but this time I ran it myself. And I had to figure out the hard stuff. I had to figure out how to manufacture things. I had to figure out, everything. When I say everything, I've never taken a business class in my life. And I don't understand what they teach in business school, because I imagine doing stuff like this, and I'm like, how do you teach all this stuff in school? Because so much of business is just daily trial and error, daily solving issues. It's daily problems and solving those, and how good you are at doing that, and being innovative, creative, all this kind of thing. So I feel like I'm pretty good at it now, but I've had a lot of help and a lot of support, and now I'm trying to figure out, it's like gone so well now, I'm a little bored, which is stupid. So I'm trying to figure out now, like, kind of where to go with it now. Like, I don't think I'm ready to sell it or anything like that, but we could definitely sell it. Maybe we partner with someone bigger, I don't know. But we're also started to get into, it's been baseball predominantly for a long time. But from a branding standpoint, like, we started making lacrosse sticks, for instance. I think if I was a crappy lacrosse player instead of a crappy baseball player, it would have been a lacrosse company in the first place. But I think it could work in other brands, but it's like, I realize how hard that is to do. Like, we have no awareness in these things. Like, so, but I also use it, like, fly fishing is absolutely my favorite obsession. So I made myself the Warstic fly fishing ambassador. So like, I get to do all the photo shoots and stuff. My wife's like, you're an idiot. But I'm like, yeah, well, look what I get to do, and I get to write it all off. And it's cool, like Warstic, we make surfboards, we make snowboards, like everything I love to do outdoors we make now. It's cool. So even if it doesn't go big, it's nice. So I probably skipped a lot, but that's a general sense of what I've done. So,
All right.
would you like this?
Sure. So to prep for this, I've watched a lot of Gordon Keith interviews over the years, and Dak Gumpanakis totally ripped off Gordon Keith. So, but we'll try to make this good. In audience questions, so I was thinking that I'd ask a few, get the audience to ask a few, and so you are actually not the first Jenkins to address the exchange of other life balance. Your
sister?
baby sister, Katie. So, and I'm actually friends with your older, not older, but older than
Yes.
so, Sarah, so the Jenkins family, before I met you, before I asked you to come speak, has fascinated me because the patriarch has what I lovingly call the generic white guy job. He is an attorney, a real estate attorney,
Yeah.
and he produced 4 kids. We have a brand management baseball executive. We have a guy running a refugee nonprofit.
Yeah.
We have a professional ballerina turned published author, and we have a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah.
And all of y'all are no longer on his payroll. So you have these amazing creative
I
jobs.
think that was his goal.
Right. So okay. One of the things that we talked about is how can you relate to this group? This is a group of a whole lot of generic white guy jobs. One of the questions is, what's going to happen when your middle son comes and says, "Dad, I want to practice the art of accountancy"? But so how did that happen? How did you get a family with 4 kids who are all in the creative world and who don't have to be living on mom and dad for rent? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated by that. So how that happened?
I mean, if I had that answer, I'd create a business and I would sell it. I mean, all I can tell you is from my perspective was, one, I was super lucky. My parents my dad was the guy that would wake up. I mean, my dad was doing well even when I was a kid, and I lived in 12 Days of Christmas, so I did not live in that hood. And everybody knew that my dad was doing well. That actually all that bothered me. But and more importantly, my dad would tell me, hey, if I ever hear you popping off or being cocky to other people that we have money, I'm gonna kick your ass. And I knew about my dad that, he grew up, his dad died when he was 10. He worked the paper route when he was in high school, and he worked his ass off. And I always knew my dad had a major work ethic. I was very clear that my dad did not just was born with money. He made it, and I knew that he did it himself. And he ended up going to college and finished in 3 years. And he's the hardest working guy I've ever met. So I got work ethic from my dad, and the normal level of what you think of work ethic for my dad is up here. So even if mine's here, it's really good. Like, I was never afraid to do the work. I think my brothers and sisters are the same way. But my mom is the actually very creative, talented person. I mean, she runs a floral business, and my mom always thought sports was cool, and she obviously thought it was. She's like, "Oh, you're a quarterback. That's cool. What did you draw today?" So I just had 2 parents that nurtured those 2 things. If you put my talent, my creative talent together with my work ethic, you got something. If I was a talented, creative person but no work ethic, you got nothing. Well, I don't know. By luck, maybe. But I mean, I don't know. I just had great parents that nurtured and they let us explore what we wanted to explore. So if my kid wants to be an accountant, it's fine with me. To be honest with you, I told my kids, everybody thinks, oh, Ben's kids play baseball. And they do. My older one plays baseball. My middle one has played baseball his life, but he got pulled up to varsity football as a sophomore this year as a linebacker. And all he wants to do is be duplicate now. And he's dead serious about it, and he tells me to my face, I think I can be better because I'm smarter and I know more. I'm like, that's a big statement, bro. And so he quit baseball because he wants to focus on it, and people think, oh, they think I'm freaking out. I'm like, do you understand how much he loves football? I've never seen the amount of joy he has in football is here. In baseball, he just tolerates it. So all I tell my kids is I care that you find what you love, and then you better work at it. And they do that, so hopefully, who knows, man. But they're doing good.
All right, so I want to hear more about the Native American part because I mean it influences from one fast buffalo. I mean your primary icon is a buffalo to Warstic. I mean all this stuff. So this is and I'm going to fess up. I'm wearing the band that I'm attending their concerts T-shirt tonight. So but I mean Native American art symbolism. The commercial that Jack White, which we'll get to Jack later. I'm sorry, they made me the programs guy, and I've been invited the Jack White guy here. So, but throughout all of it, Native American symbols and talking about that. Quick, so tell us more about this time on the reservation. Where did this passion come from, and what is Warstic doing with that now?
Trying to think back. How the hell? I got connected to it completely by accident. Like I said, I was studying film, not Native American political studies, but I ended up learning about the current state of Native America by having a professor take me out, and I'm not doing anything, I'm like holding a camera and just being a grunt, but like I said, man, when you walk into, if you ever drive into Pine Ridge Reservation, first of all, you'll be the only white person there, 100%. And you'll feel the heaviness around you. And like, I'm there with another group of people learning about what's going on there. And you know, this is back, it's only been 20 years since like, it's only been 100 years since like Wounded Knee. Y'all know what Wounded Knee is? Wounded Knee is a massacre of 160 women and children. So like when you're standing over a mass grave and you're from Lake Highlands, it has an effect on you. It just makes you realize there's more to it than what I was stressed about here and stuff like that. But I think in terms of Native America, what I connected to was so much of their language and culture is connected to the art. Whereas here it's compartmentalized, right? And so it's like, oh, I'm doing my job, and then art's something I do over here. And even religion, to be honest with you, like we compartmentalize so much. Like we do church on Sundays, and we do work on these days, and we do art and fun on this. In Native culture, it's the mindset's just completely different. Everything's connected, and I really responded to that, you know. And so, I mean, it's nothing more than I started, you know, acquiring friends and hanging out and learning. Oh, not every Native American is the same as the next one. No different than saying, you know, a guy from Florida has different beliefs than a guy from California. They're two different cultures, they're two different tribes. And so when you think about, I started learning about all the diversity and honestly funny things. Like I know Pawnee jokes about Osage guys. And you start to get in and you're like, wow, there's a lot. It's something that's been there so long. And it just always bothered me that this thing that existed that was so, I mean, horrible and beautiful at the same time existed. And we're here now, and we don't have any connection, and it's barely alive, you know. And so, back then too, Native American now in the last 5 years is really starting to reemerge and get respect and all these things. You're seeing, we don't get to need political here, but the Redskins didn't change their name because they all of a sudden started thinking about it. They got a ton of pressure from Native voices starting to be heard. So, I don't know, like it was people I cared about. So, when I started Warstic, I knew that my design style, I don't try to do Native things, but I like some of the same things. I like simplicity but bold colors. I love repeating patterns. There's a lot of things that just respond, I just do naturally that I don't know where it came from. Maybe it came from hanging around it too much, you know. So it inspires and touches my work. So I thought, well, if Warstic's gonna do good, it needs to have a cause. So we created a thing called the American Stick Warriors Fund. So it's simple, like we'll do fundraisers and stuff. Like during COVID last year, the Navajo reservation was just getting hammered, like hammered. So I took 4 baseballs. I sent them to Eddie Vedder. Who's, how old are you guys? Pearl Jam? You guys know Pearl Jam? So I have cool
Except
friends.
for Nathan. Everyone but Nathan.
Yeah, but Nathan. Think of it as Mick Jagger of the 70s. No, Jack, my business partner Jack has cool friends, which are become not friends but acquaintances. So it's like we took 5 baseballs, sent them to Eddie Vedder, we auctioned them off and made 40 grand off 5 baseballs. We take that and we send it to the Navajo reservation. So it just, I do think companies these days, to be honest with you, everyone wants to buy from companies that have, it tends to be a cause brand, but you damn well better be doing something with success or you're an asshole. So it's as simple as that. And it's like for me, actually what I wanted to support is, you know, like wounded veterans. That would be really cool. One of my investors is Travis Mills, who my sister made a documentary about. And it was cool, but the problem is like they're very supportive, you know. Like Native veterans these days get a lot of support. A lot of people support that. And I don't want to not support that, but I was like, I want to do something that's not supported. And 10 years ago when I started doing this, you know, a lot of people don't even know that Natives still exist, let alone what are the issues that they're facing, that kind of stuff. So that just became the cause of Warstic, and I think it always would. So did I answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, important, very quick question. Do you need a drink?
No, I'm good.
You sure? Hey Nathan, if they've got a Makers on the rocks back there, that'd be awesome.
Sorry, all.
Wow.
Perfect.
All drinks from up here. Absolutely.
Okay, so, all right, audience question. Anybody? Patrick?
Favorite place to fly?
It's like you read my notes.
Favorite place to fly fish?
Yep.
What's the question?
What's your favorite place to fly fish? I will fly fish in a fucking creek. So, I have Tourette's, and the kind that's, I don't do the cussing, I guess I do cussing, but like I have sensory issues. There's something about being in a river that just, I stop, like everything calms down. It's like I'm completely immersed in it and I can feel it. Like people say they feel it in their soul. Like I literally physically feel a river. So it's like being in a warm blanket for me. So like I honestly don't care. But I mean I fish in the middle of Colorado at Gunnison Valley, and I could fish there the rest of my life every day, never hit every hole. And we've got some. My dad bought a property there for like $20,000 in 1974. We just got really lucky, so we still got that. So little cabin where we can go and fish. So I mostly go there just because I don't need to go anywhere else, but I'll fish anywhere. I'll even go to crappy Broken Bow. I went to Tishomingo the other day because I just was jonesing. I'm like, I gotta go. My wife's like, you need to go, don't you? Like I'll drive by the car and just a creek, and if I see the creek, I'm up here like this. Like it's just Colorado. Yeah, but I mean, I'm hoping in my 50s what I want to do. I want to go to Patagonia for sure. I want to go to Norway. I've never been to Alaska, so it's kind of cool because I've spent a lot of time getting good. Like I'm good. I've just spent a lot of time with it. I think COVID year I lived in Colorado and I fished 87 days almost in a row. So I've gotten good. But you can get good too if you just do it a lot. It's not a big deal.
Joe?
Oh no, you're not allowed. No, nobody that actually knows me is not
Talk
allowed.
about, because I think it's cool, like how many major leaguers are now using Warstic with bats.
Yeah.
And talk about kind of the process of getting your bat to allow major leaguers to use it. Because I know we've talked about that, how it's not easy.
Yeah.
Joe's question is how many major leaguers are currently using your bats, and what was your process to get there?
Currently none because the league is shut down.
You know when that's gonna get back up too?
I think it's gonna start on time. I think it's gonna start on time.
Reading my notes.
We'll see.
Amazing.
It wouldn't surprise me if they don't, but I actually think it's gonna start on time. I think here in the last second next week, I think they're gonna get us back on track.
That's good for Patrick because he's going to spring training. So.
But I can't say for sure, but I mean, I do talk to all the guys and talk to this and that, and it's like they're both being completely stubborn, but they both know how crazy it is for them to not be playing. So we got the DH, universal DH. That was a big one. I mean, yeah, I think next week. What was the question? Oh, the hardest part about getting major leaguers in the first place was having a brand that they even cared about. So the good news is I had major leaguers calling us or inquiring about us before we were even legal in the major leagues because I think they saw the brand. And just like anybody else, there's early adapters in every industry, right? Most of the people don't buy things unless your buddies buy them. That's the mainstream. That's hard. Early adapters are kind of easy. And so there's just like in the major leagues, there's guys that are looking for the new cool thing. And we were starting to emerge like that, but we weren't legal in the major leagues. So you have to create a want, and then basically it's not, people think it's like an approval process of quality. Well, that better be there. That's kind of a given, because if you hand it back to Miguel Cabrera and it just explodes, it's not gonna go much further than that. You gotta pay them a big old licensing fee and a massive amount of insurance. So basically if you're at a Rangers game and a bat flies in the stands and hits somebody and sends them to the hospital, we have to sign an agreement with Major League Baseball that they don't get sued, we do. Isn't that cool? So, then they don't, but then they also won't raise the nets and stuff. It's like all this. So, it's not much of an approval process from anything other than it's a lot of money. And specifically getting Ian Kinsler was a strategic move to say, hey, he's gonna bring money in and he's gonna go use the bat, which is, if you think about it, he had already been an All-Star 4 times. He was tracking I mean, he's a borderline Hall of Famer. He has a reputation. But he saw this thing and took it into the major leagues. His first year in Detroit, he hit 28 home runs, had one of his best career years. So the whole point with Ian was to go prove that we could make stuff that would perform at this level. And then from there, we went with a little bit more of an approach of, which just works for us better, is like kind of if you build it, they will come type thing. And so just like chasing girls, like if there's a super hot chick over there, it's best that you can do things that you get her to come to you. That's what I hear. I met my wife when I was 12, so. You know, from there, we just started getting interest, and what we would do is say, hey, we've got a selective club of about 12 guys we actually told people we would limit it, which at the beginning we didn't, we had Ian. But, you know, pretty soon we have Miguel Cabrera. We've had an all-star lineup of guys swing our bats, and they're very fickle. I mean, some guys stick, and some guys just they're baseball players. They're as superstitious as you could possibly be. So, you know, we've had, you know, I talk to Bryce Harper often. I talk to, you know, whoever, you know, and it's all normalized to me. But it was back when we started. It was super cool to just be, you know, I wanted to be those guys, admittedly. So, it was cool getting to the major leagues a different way through what I was actually talented at. That was the coolest part of it, you know. And then I can go to batting practice and hang out and just be in a different environment than the fans, and that's cool. And you know, get to know the, you know, so at this point, like Rangers, like Woody is a good friend of mine, and he'll tell me things he's not supposed to tell me, like, hey, we want this player. I'm like, you can't tell me, like, I'm not the agent, like, I'm the middleman. I'm like calling Kevin Pillar, like, hey, I think the Rangers want you. I'm like, I'm not getting paid for this, but anyway, it's cool. But the cool one this year, I think, I don't want to jinx this, but I think we're gonna have Marcus Semien, the new Rangers second baseman, as our main face. For not just this year, but we're working on like a 7-year deal, because he's here 7 years, and he's as Warstic as you could get. Up to the fact he doesn't even have social media, which sounds bad for us, but it reflects the kind of guy he is. He's a completely selfless teammate, warrior guy, you know. And so like that would be cool. And so that's the thing too with our major leaguers. As much as I like Bryce Harper, he's not a great example to kids, so he's not like a Warstic guy that we promote. We want to make sure that Warstic's big on teaching kids to, actually our tagline is not the weapon, it's the warrior. I'm telling you, it's not my product, it's you. So we spend a lot of time teaching kids about belief and how much confidence matters and things like that. So we've seen a lot of impact with kids and parents saying, hey, well, once my kid got hold of Warstic, I saw him change. I'm like, yeah, that's what it is. You know, it's like belief and confidence in baseball, more than any sort of sport, matters. And so we make sure that the major leaguers we really use with our brand are those kind of guys that can talk mental game, those guys that, you know, maybe battle through a lot of adversity to get there. Like Simeon's the same way. Like everybody's like, why don't you get Corey Seager? And I'm like, well, Corey Seager was born as a first-round pick. He never struggled in his life. He was the one of one. I mean, he was born to be a major leaguer. It's been pretty easy for Corey Seager, and he's a great guy. I work with his brother. He's a super guy. He's great. But the story of Simeon for a kid is much more inspiring, because Simeon was like a 32nd round pick. He was nobody, and then he was nobody more, and then he just really had to work for it, and that's what we want the kids to see, that no matter what you're doing, it's work. You know, the work is the thing that you need to enjoy and get into the process of. And again, I forgot the question.
Perfect answer. That's perfect. All right, so I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about your other investor. Okay. So
No one knows who he is.
no.
I can fix that.
No, so this is now for me and Patrick Allen. All right, so I discovered the White Stripes in 2003 by total accident. We were living in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a bit ironic because big competitor there. But watching a thing called MTV, which used to show videos, and this crazy Lego video came on with a garage band. It's like this, you know, just real basic sounds. Like, this is phenomenal. So first time I saw the White Stripes live was in 2005. Try to catch him every single time I can. Jack White's a genius. He's also, like a lot of geniuses, really, really eccentric. You know, he's got his upholstery company and his record label and producing stuff in country music and winning Grammys. What is it like working with Jack White? He's not here, right? So I'll be honest.
I don't care.
If he is here, it'd be a great
I
person.
talk to him every day. Like, this is like, at this point, it's like talking about my brother. But I talk less to than Jack White. we have a little text group, me, Ian, Jack's tour manager, my best friend Craig, who grew up here. It's about 8 guys, and just like all of y'all, like we have a text message group, and we just talk baseball, and we talk what's going on, we talk Warstic and this kind of stuff. So it's hard to say now because it's really normalized on me, which is strange, because when Ian first said, hey, would you want to work with Jack White? I was kind of like you. I was like, dude, I just had a massive amount of creative respect for him. Like, to a point, I would have said the same thing. That guy's a creative genius. He couldn't be more respected in his field. He's thought of as one of the top 5 guitarists of all time. And I knew the same thing. I was like, he's eccentric. And the cool thing I learned about Jack and why I said yes was, he does whatever the hell he wants. And I don't mean it like he's a wild ass. Creatively, he doesn't worry about the rules of what he's supposed to do and not do, right? He just follows his own nose. And I'm like that to a large extent, and I'm like, that's a person that I could work with. You know, I did this not to work with other people, but that's a guy I could work with. Or I could, at least, it'll be fun to see if I can. You know what I mean? So like, what's hard is, like, we built our headquarters last year, and that was the biggest creative project that we've done. You know, we built like a world headquarters in Deep Ellum on Main Street last year, and you guys should go down there. It's super cool. Oh, pictures. Let's see. So doing this with Jack was the hardest thing that I've done. So that's the headquarters, and it's Jack. Let's see. There's a good view of like the store and stuff. Like, it's not subtle. Like, it's not. It's not like, oh, let's get this space, paint the walls white, and go buy some fixtures. Like, every single aspect of this thing is custom designed and custom built, and that's me and Jack. You know, like the stains you see on the wood are stupid. They're like, you can't go and call and hire someone that can paint a cabinet like a guitar stain. You have to figure it out, but that's what he does, right? What he does is like overdo everything. He's kind of like my dad, to be honest with you. He just, and they get along great, by the way. He loves my dad. My dad's got train sets up in the attic that are better than the ones at North Park that he's built himself. And Jack just freaks out about it. He just loves tons of work and tons of detail and stuff. So the hardest thing is creatively getting along with him, because it's like his style's over here, my style's over here. Like, he only likes primary colors, red. You guys know what primary colors are? He's like red, blue, green. I hate primary colors. I am like all the tertiary stuff. Like, I'm brown, I'm off-white, I'm sage gray, like all this kind of stuff. But there's like 20% or 30% of stuff we like that's the same. So when we're working together, we have to find that common stuff that we both like. And then there's some compromise and stuff. But like, think about Jack. I mean, no one's ever told that guy no, but I do. Because I still can't help it. I'm like, this is my company, this is my baby, this is where I created, and like, I'm the only one I really trust. So for the most part, we get through it though. There's been some moments. So one time I had to send him like 48 yellow roses. It's a thing. I don't sing God's Roses a lot, but it just was a card. He has a famous song that's like in Curious George. If your kids watch Curious George, there's a famous song, We're Gonna Be Friends. And I was like, we're gonna be design friends, motherfucker. And I was like, we're gonna get along. We just have to do this, you know. And they've been amazing. So, but I tell people what he does for me is like, I'll never catch what he's doing. He's about to go on world tour again, and it's like in the morning getting up, I'm like, I'm just trying to chase him, so it gives me like pace burner. You know what I mean? And trying to keep up with what he's doing, but doing my own stuff. You know. I'm good at answering questions. Okay, I was gonna show people. For the people who no clue who I'm talking about, the only possible way you'll know who this guy is if you watch you guys watch college football? Guys, you guys watch college football? It's like almost every college football game in America, you're gonna hear this song, okay? I can't, it's not playing up there.
Rick? Microphone.
So anyway, like,
This song, so remember We Are Kids and We Are the Champions, like, who's that, Queen? That song transcended rock and roll and became part of sports. this song has probably surpassed what that did in terms of like the way it's used in so many different sports, football, baseball, international soccer. Like it's insane. Our high school plays it, and they don't even know what they're playing, right? It's transcended even Jack, right? So it's not like something he could have planned, but like that's the most famous song by far that like the normal general public would know, you know? And it's like, oh wow, that's that. But anyway, that's Jack.
Perfect.
All right, Robert, if I start geeking out a little too much, you've got the hook. So, tell me about your van setup. So I've got a big van.
Oh, I thought you said my band. I was like, bro, my
No, no.
band broke up in high school.
So I'm envious of the van life. I'm quasi there. I've got the big van, but I don't have it set up. So tell us about about your setup.
Which band? My new one?
Oh, this is gonna be a time.
Let's see.
I'll see myself. Yeah. I was going to ask how
I was
Warstic
thinking
is
it's right
doing,
here.
but I think we just got the answer.
Oh, there it is. I was like, I think I just posted a picture. So that's my 18-year-old son. He's the senior catcher at Lake Islands. This was like, so when the ice storm came the other day, this is how cool my wife is. She sees the ice storm coming. The instant that school gets canceled, she calls me. She's like, "Where are we going?" Jenkins don't hang around here. So she found red-eye flights to San Diego where we keep this thing, and we surfed for the whole. We got the kids back the night before school came again. But like, yeah, man, it's like it's a sprinter van. It's got tents on the top and the back, and we can fit like 6 longboards, surfboards inside it. It's got a bed. I mean, that's it. But it's something like to me, it's about. My single favorite thing is to be out in the water with my 3 sons. Like, there's nothing that I can do that make me happier than to be surfing with my 3 sons out in the water. So like, every bit of what this costs is absolutely worth it, whether I can afford it or not. I'm pretty good at just spending my money on that, and I think my dad did the same thing. Like, my dad didn't really. It wasn't about spoiling us. It's about doing things with us. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, that's to me the van. When I think the van, I think of my kids. I don't do the van really without them. I do it with them. You know what I mean? So. I'm just trying to be that guy that's like keeping that going as long as I can, and hopefully, my kid told me the other day, he's trying to figure out where to go to college. He's like, I don't know, but I want to be around you guys. And I was like, yeah.
All right, so Nathan has a question.
Have you ever played like jammed out with Jack White?
Yeah. Yeah. Not on purpose. It's funny that you asked it because I think that picture might be right here. So over the years, like I'll go where's that go? See, this is the shit he gets me to do. So like that's Eddie Vedder, that's me in Hawaii, and like I made him a surfboard and gave it to him, and I get to do really cool stuff like that because of Jack. But like one time, Kelly Slater. That's John C. Reilly just in the picture. Yeah, like this was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, actually, because we were in Denver, like whatever their big arena is, and during sound check, I would just be there a lot, you know, hanging out, and it's me and like his band and the crew and stuff, and it's just part of it, you know. And so he's like, "Oh Ben, come try out this new guitar pedal I got. I want you to try it out." And I play guitar, but I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll just check it out." Well, the instant I get on it, he runs to the drums, and he tells the bass player to run to the bass. And I'm like, no. So I got the entire arena jamming. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me right now. And then what was worse is my 2 kids are standing 5 feet from me, like, go Dad, go. I had no choice, so I pulled it off okay, at least in the kids' mind, so they think I'm cool. But yeah, that's the closest I've come to like playing with Jack. I don't ask, and no. I mean, that's just stupid. Like you're talking about, like if you play golf, like, oh, Tiger Woods is here, let me just go play around with him? Do you really want to do that?
I don't.
Good question. Mark Holmes.
I do. I have a question.
Oh, standing
Oh.
I'm not gonna get a microphone, so I'll just stand.
You don't need one.
So Ben, thanks for your time. So obviously my neighbor, Tony DiVenuti, still wants you to get into the hockey stick business, so let me know
Oh,
when
is he
you're
got
ready
the
to.
triplets?
The triplets,
Okay.
yeah, so let me know when you're ready to break out the, spread the brand over there.
Yeah.
But to that end, with Warstic or with any of the brands that One Fast Buffalo has done, what do you see as the way you're in the brand creation business? What are the elements that make a brand stick, like Warstic for a bad pun? But you know, what are the elements of a successful brand in your mind?
Well, there's no, I get asked a lot. I mean, we'll do 2 or 3 client projects a year now still, but I'm doing a gin spirit for Darren Clark, who's a British Open champion. Super cool, and I get asked those same questions, and I think they act like we have some magic formula. And I would say we don't, but we do know where we are in today's world, that we're not in 1950, where I sometimes wish that was in 1950, because if I had some money and there's only 3 stations, well, that means we're all watching those 3 stations, so I got a 1 in 3 chance that I'm gonna be able to get your attention. The problem now is everybody's like, oh, social media, the internet, it's so easy to get out on there. And I'm like, yeah, but it's harder than ever to get attention, because our attention, especially, not maybe us old guys so much, we probably follow like, probably the same people we follow anyway, but the kids, I mean, they're following so many people, and your attention is splintered into 1,000 different parts. That makes it extremely difficult for any brand these days to start. It's actually, I think it's much harder. It's easier to start, but it's harder to stick. And your question was about sticking, and I think what's working these days mostly is, I think the thing that we do better than our competitors, I won't talk about design, it matters in our industry, because my thing was, just because sporting goods work good doesn't mean they can't look badass. And I kind of put those 2 things together. And I'm kind of, in our industry, it's pretty low bar, so when I'm designing things that look really cool and they work, it's good. But beyond that, I tell people that it's being really human. Like, my competitors still look very robotic, and it's like there's a wall between them and you, and they're afraid to have a voice. They're afraid, and I mean like have a perspective, like have an opinion. Like, we're not afraid to do that, and so we come off as much more human to people, and the reality is, in these smaller tribes, these smaller groups that we're all broken into, that matters more than ever. So my thing with brands will be really understand who your audience is and your tribe, and be human with them. Don't act like, people think that being human means you're not big, you're not small time, or that you're small time or something. I'm like, no. People want a personal connection, especially millennials, and whatever this next generation is they call after that, they're even worse. They want you to interact with them. They want to feel a connection to you. So if you're not being human, it's not going to happen. So my best advice to people is stop being scared of that. But that said, in order to do that, you got to know what you're about and what your message is to people and stuff like that, which is also hard. That's why with a lot of the clients that we still work with, it's like, you're asking me to brand your thing when you don't even know what the hell you're trying to say. Why are you doing this business? And I think the businesses that work are the ones that have something to say in the first place. We can give that to them, and they can put hard work in, it can work, but like, we try to give them, and at least, a lot of them are like, hey, it's like going to the doctor, it's like, you actually care about this, you're just not realizing it. So you give them and pinpoint with them what they really care about and what that connection can be with the client and stuff like that, or with the audience. So, but man, it's any business these days, like, it's just extremely hard to get attention and to keep it, so. Again, I forgot what the question was.
Thanks, appreciate it.
All right, guys.
So we want to be respectful of your time as a bilateral speaker.
Oh, I can stay here 2 more minutes or 3 hours, I don't care. Sweet. If I go home, I'll just start working again.
Very good. What else?
Anybody got anything else?
Okay, well, I'm gonna put the one that I put in the newsletter. Favorite Jack White iteration.
Iteration, like a song.
Our persona, because you got the White Stripes, Breakout Tours, Dead Weather, Jack White,
Oh.
solo, something produces on that. I mean, the bluegrass stuff. So if any of y'all are into bluegrass, you think, oh, Jack White, he's a garage rock guy with blue hair. He does freaking amazing bluegrass music. It's insane. Robert, again, you've got the cane.
This is I'm afraid Jackson here. I mean, it's hard not to like the white stripe stuff. I grew up with it. I can remember working to it and stuff like that. So it's just sad, and he's sad that the white stripes still don't exist. People don't understand that he didn't want that to end. The other person did. So he's done an amazing job of evolving. You know, a lot of artists, especially in music, they're young and they do really good in their 20s, and then they're not cool anymore, and then that's it. And then you got like Neil Young, Bruce Springsteen. There's very few that keep getting better as they get older. He actually manages to do that, and I think it's because he doesn't rely on what he did before. So I like I went on tour with the Raconteurs last year, his other band, and I thought it was amazing. So I love the Raconteurs, and I love everything Jack does because he made hear this.
He seems more so as a fanboy. He seems more relaxed in the Raconteurs because it's not all him.
Yes, that's what he likes.
Guys,
He's like,
and it's just-
well, it's like why he plays Sandlot baseball with us, because a person like that doesn't get a chance to just be a regular guy like everybody else. When he's playing first base in our charity Sandlot games, he's just like everybody else. He freaking loves it. So I think in the Raconteurs, where he's not just him, he's very, he feels like he's in a band. Like you come off stage, he's like, man, it feels like 1976 out there. I love it. Like I feel like I'm in Zeppelin. You know, that kind of thing.
Speaking of Zeppelin, if no one has seen it, might get loud.
Oh yeah.
It's a
That's a good
documentary
one.
about the electric guitar. It's Jimmy Page, The Edge from U2, and Jack White. It starts with Jack White taking a box, an electric wire, and a piece of wire or metal wire and making a guitar. Joe has a question.
I was just gonna say, is it true that he makes all cell phones go away at his concert?
Yeah, I tried to catch him many times. No, not only, yeah, so if you go to a Jack White concert, when you get to the door, they take your cell phone and they put it in a bag, they lock that bag, they give you that bag back, but you cannot get to your cell phone. Everybody freaks out for about 10, 15 minutes, just like all of you, because we're so addicted. But after about 15 minutes, it's like the best feeling in the world. And his whole point is like to be immersed in the experience of being there, not looking through the phone. And it actually is extremely cool. And it sounds like super hard ass at first and like, oh, come on. But no one doesn't like it. It gives them the freedom to just finally stop and be there. So he does that. And then it's crazier. Like he doesn't have a cell phone in real life either. He's got an assistant or two. Well, and I make fun of him because like he has a laptop, and so I mean if I text him right now,
Let's do this.
Patrick,
Let's do
if I
this.
squeal, just FaceTime. He's not very high on the list.
well, it's like I think it's because my internet's not.
Sure is the internet.
Let's find the whole game. There.
Our old QB was.
Anyway, we'll see if he comes back. We'll see if he shoots on him. But see, this is us. Like, it's just guys, right? That's the thing about Jack. He's this super well famous artist, but he's, you know, they're like funny stuff. Like, oh, our old QB won the Super Bowl. They're Detroit jokes. You know what I mean? Like, we'll see you there. Fuck, what was the question?
Joe, what was the question?
Locking cell phones.
Oh, my point was,
Anti-tech.
if he answers when he answers, it's because he's on his laptop, which he's on all the time, because he's addicted to his laptop just like we're all addicted to his phone. And I always joke to him, like, where's your phone at? And I'm like, just get a phone, man. You're using it like we all use it. Just get the phone. You know what I mean? But that's how he is. When he sets rules like that for himself, he does not break them. Like he will never do it. He just won't do it. So, yeah, it's funny.
More artists are doing it. I went and saw Tool the other week in a neck brace, which is really awesome. But I mean, they had the ushers they were kicking people out for having their cell phone.
Yeah, no, he's super serious about it. But the thing that people don't understand about Jack too, and I never would have guessed, like he's the biggest dad joke guy in the world. Like one of my sons, Shepard, is a big dad joke guy, and he's like, Dad, I got a new one. Text Jack, and I'll tell her, and he wants to hear it. Like he's extremely eccentric on one side, but extremely his dad is the rest of us on the other, and he's got kids like the rest of us too. And I have learned a lot in the last 5 years hanging around people I'd never had business hanging around. Like Eddie Vedder's one of the sweetest guys in the world. You know, everything's normalized. It's been good for me because I'm not so worried about trying to be famous. Like when you're a kid and you want to be some big thing, because you realize people are pretty normal, you know what I mean? It's more of the thing you make. I put the, the effort in the thing you make and hope that that does well, but it's like, at least I'm not running around worried about that so much, because I've realized these guys are just pretty normal. There's some big leaguers there. We call, me and Ian call them, there's big leaguers and there's guys we like. And the big leaguers are the guys, there's guys in the league that just, like, they have this air about them that's like, they just, they were born and they have an air of like, I deserve to be here because I was born. And we don't mess with those guys. And then there's some guys that are the sweetest guys in the world. Like, they're, I think Simeon's one of them. He's like, they are as humble as can be, and they understand how lucky they are to be, and that's the kind of people we want to hang out with and stuff. So I've seen both, but yeah. All right.
Can Major League Baseball withstand another strike?
Man, I don't know. The thing is, the kids who are going to watch baseball in 10 years, they're not watching it anyway. It's more of the problem, is baseball going to make it? Because what I'm seeing is, like, especially in this, like, I coach kids here in Lake Highlands till they're about 12. Like, I coach all my kids, like probably a lot of you guys did. We're losing a lot of kids to, like, lacrosse because baseball's hard and it makes you cry and there's all this failure and stuff. And kids these days, they definitely are a little less, like, prone to gravitate towards that kind of thing. I think it's just the nature of baseball. I hear all this stuff about attention span and all this kind of stuff. I'm not big on trying to speed baseball up. Baseball's a beautifully long, slow thing that can end in dramatic moments, but it doesn't really fit with what's going on. It's like, if you look at Bryce Harper, who I think is the most marketable player in MLB right now, Trout maybe, they have like 1 million followers on Instagram. Well, LeBron James has 100 million. If you just look at the biggest star, even Shohei Ohtani, right? Awesome. 1 million followers. Like, some random 5th string guy on the Mavericks has 16 million. It's just not as popular sport that it was. I don't know what's gonna happen, but when you go to a game, I mean, they're selling out and stuff. So I don't know where it's going, man. What was the question?
Hockey sticks.
Hockey sticks.
Hey,
So, are you a golfer?
I play with Ian just to pace set him, but yeah. I
So
play.
there's like a hickory league, right?
Hickory
What was
League?
the question?
So like wooden shacks.
Oh, wooden shafts, yeah.
Did you ever make wooden
Yeah,
shack
Ian
golf
tries to
carts?
get me to do. We actually making a Warstic golf driver, and so I was out testing it with him last week. And the next thing on the list, if we do that and that works, it would be putters, and then wedges, and then maybe a wooden one or something like that. But I'm known in the office to get. I'm 3 years ahead of what we're supposed to be doing, and so I get a lot of, like, the president of Warstic. She's a girl. She's my partner in One Fast Buffalo. She's like, I just get a lot of, they slap in my face like, can you focus now where we're at? But boy, it's my job to figure out where we're going later, So the golf thing is a very sensitive topic at the office. So I'm also afraid she's listening to me right now. So it's down the road, but I think it'll work. So we'll see.
I got a question.
What's that?
Look right there.
Oh, yes, sir.
I imagine the Eastons and the Willis Loggers, they've got massive fabrication facilities and R&D facilities.
Yeah.
You're doing fly fishing rods, you're prototyping shafts.
Yeah.
How do you keep up with your competitors in your core business and
Yeah.
also innovate these other products?
That's a good question. I would say I design circles around them, and design is very good. Design is a really powerful thing, and so I don't manufacture a single thing, and I don't, like, especially when we started, people would give us crap that we didn't make our own stuff. I'm like, I'm a designer. I can sit on a lathe and make a bat, but it's really boring, especially after the 60-second one. So it's just not my passion to be sitting there on the lathe making bats. What I love is I love to work with a craftsman who's really good at that, and I design what he makes. And when you put those two things together, it's super powerful. So I would say that we focus, they're dealing with constant manufacturing problems while I'm out there. I mean, I'm working with the 17 manufacturers around the world. They've been doing a lot of this stuff for 40, 50 years. They're extremely good. They've got amazing engineers, and I'm really good at, like, I can sit up in the middle of the night and do a Skype call for 3 hours and like it. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm refining what that thing is, and it's a constant back and, like, I'm working on working on a backpack right now, like a really tricked out military style player's backpack. And it's just this constant back and forth of like, this is what I want, you get a prototype made, it comes back, I tear it apart, I make a million notes, I send it back, it gets a little better. I do that 6 times before it's ready. And I have a lot of patience to go through that process because I know I don't just spit stuff out, you know. So it's funny, like our new operator, he's not new, he's been there 2 years. Our operations director, Mike, came from Louisville Slugger, and he, we didn't steal him. He actually just flat out he goes, look, I want to move back to Texas. I went to TCU. My wife and I want to come back. They're living in Chicago, and that's where Louisville Slugger is now based. And he's like, yeah, man, just all we would talk about in Louisville Slugger and the market is Warstic and how cool it is and what they do in this. He's like, I'm moving down here. I don't know if you'd want to hire me, but I know what I'm doing. I ran bats for Louisville Slugger for 5 years. And I hired him in like 2 days. He's a perfect fit for us because he's not creative. He just knows the nuts and bolts of the industry. And he walks into the office and he goes, how many people run this thing? And I go, how many do you think? He's like, I don't know. I was thinking like 30. And I go, 4. And that's what's cool about it. I like it like that because it's just a system that we're building all the time and running. And then the outsourced aspects of it are crazy. It's all these teams that we rely on, but like it's like running a video game to me, I guess. It's like these 4 people in the office designing things and running things and putting all the pieces together. And so it's nice too because it gets profitable really fast when there's only, I mean, we have 6, 7 people in the office. That's it. But people, like our competitors, I mean, they're 200, 250, 300 people. I think that's fun. I don't know if it's stupid or not. I don't need people because I don't manufacture anything. You know what I mean? And I didn't answer your question. Did I?
It sounds like an outsource model. It's good.
Yeah, and that comes from living in a trailer going, what's a business I could do that's drop ship, right? And how can I live in this trailer, cause something to create but not make it, you know what I mean? And the reality is like, wood bats are a dime a dozen. There's 150 little wood bat companies in America, so it's not like a special thing to make a wood bat in America. What's hard is to get into the manufacturing space and then be willing to work with you when you're nobody. That was the hard thing. And then we got on the map enough that the biggest manufacturer in the world came to us and said, dude, you guys know what you're doing, we want to work with you. And I was like, who are you? Like, we make everybody's bats. We make Louisville Slugger, we make Easton, and I was like, oh, cool. Then when that happened, we really just started going up. It's a constant process of taking your products, figuring out how you can make them better, and going through that grind of doing it, and then constantly reduce. You know, if I was working in manufacturing, you wouldn't be working in innovation. The manufacturers don't innovate crap. They wait for other people to force that on them, you know. So I've invented. There's a baseball. Let's see if this is on here. It's right here. So a few years ago, so like that baseball bat right there. You don't see that knob right there? It's a very conventional baseball bat knob right there. But this one is not. This is, see that knob right there? That's a fully tooled, tapered, smooth knob. It seems like a little thing, but no one in the history of metal bat baseball had done that. And so, you know, I asked my manufacturer, like, could I do that? I drew it out, you know, I sketched it with an idea, and I was like, could you do that? And they're like, yeah, it would cost like 20 grand to tool that. And they're like, so no one would do that. And I'm like, but if it works, you know, it could really hit. And doing that, man, it blew us up. That one bat, it just was so pro, and so it's so much more comfortable on your hand. If you imagine like that lip digging into your hand versus the smooth nature of that knob, and it was a game changer. And then I patented it, and I don't know how I got the patent, but I did. I couldn't believe it. So no one else can do it either. So that innovation that's a design thing, you know, and having great manufacturers. They actually I would say that manufacturers love working with us because of that, because they're not doing the same old boring thing all the time. We're actually pushing them to like do something they haven't done. And those are usually, it doesn't always work, but those are the things that tend to move you ahead, you know. So
So speaking of things they haven't done, backpack. Just want to put in a
small plug for a couple of guys in the audience, Paul, Charlie, Andy, me. If you can have the backpack where the lumbar can drop a little lower. No, I mean, seriously, if you try to find a mountain backpack where you're 6'6",
tall.
No, seriously, finding a backpack, it doesn't work, so.
I actually took, so,
It's an idea.
yeah. Well, I mean, mine is,
Idea seeding.
yeah. Mine's just,
I'm running off now.
Yeah.
See, you thought you were bad. I'm running people off.
I can describe, so my backpack is military tactical sling pack. So sling packs, you can carry more weight, like it goes like this, instead of this. So if you take a military, like what you think of as like a Marine carrying around, and then you combine that with like a fly fishing utility tool, where you've got like all your compartments right here for accessories. Then you combine that with a baseball pack, that's our pack. It's not done yet, we'll see. Kids may hate it. But I hate doing that, like what my competitors do is like, they're like, oh, we need a backpack. They go to China, they find a stock backpack, they throw their loader on it, and that's it. And I take 2 years instead to do it and work on it for 2 years so that when it comes out, no one's seen it before. And to me, that's the fun of what I do. And it gets funner as I go along because the longer we go along, the more manufacturers believe that those ideas work because they've seen it work and they don't think you're crazy. And you know, we have more funding to do those things, so it's getting funner. You know, more fun, more funnish. Funner.
Mr. McCutcheon, do you have a question?
No.
No? Sure.
A lot more support for most backpacks is sufficient.
So that the sling will support your backpack. Yes, sir.
For a brand that you're not involved in, if there's a brand in market that you would love to like reinvent for them, is there a brand you pick?
Say that question again. I want to make sure I understand what you mean. Like,
So like a brand you're not associated with, if you're like, if I was in charge, I would totally reinvent that brand and I'd make it 100 times better.
You're a designer, which brand do you see is in big demand for a redesign?
Wait till he gets that minute.
the one that actually pops into my head is NFL, all the uniforms. And I mean everyone. My kid won't watch football with me because I'm watching football. It's like, I look at every single uniform and I'm like, here's what's wrong with that. It's funny because now he started to tell his friends the same thing. I'm like, oh, it's kind of fun in it. But like, I really badly want to get a hold of the NFL and work with every team to fix the uniforms. I don't know, that's the first thing that popped in my head. Because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about other people's business. And, I mean, I'm just learning still too, so. But I never meet a brand I don't think I can do better. And that's not cocky, it's just, that's actually a weird, I don't mean that in cockiness, but that's how my brain works. Like I look at everything, your clothes, and I'm like, okay, here's what I would change. Not because I don't like it, because there's always a way to make it better. And just improve it, you know what I mean? And I don't know where that comes from or why, but like this is how I am, you know what I mean? So.
How do you feel about pro bono work in big community events?
Wait, is someone in charge of Oktoberfest? My favorite band of all time played at Oktoberfest this year. Sunbolt?
Yeah.
That's my favorite band of all time.
Really?
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's like, how is this happening?
So you're
I
like
feel
the
sorry
one
for
guy
them.
who's
I'm not
like,
gonna, I mean,
when
nothing against them.
Tulo broke up, 99 with Wilco, one with Sunbolt. You with Sunbolt.
Yeah, that's Sunbolt. And I'm a Blue Mountain guy. Blue Mountain played at my wedding. Anyway, it's a long story. We're definitely. Yes, sir.
Why aren't you an exchange club member?
No one's asked me, and I don't even know. I'm admittedly really reclusive in the neighborhood, by the way. Like I'm either at my kids' sports or I'm in the back. I have a studio in the back of my house, and I'm very antisocial. I don't do well with other humans.
We love all
So it's not that I wouldn't, I just didn't know what it is or why. And no one's asked me.
This was all
But
one
food
big
was really
recruiting
good.
event.
Yes, sir.
JT.
You with the.
So, a club question, deer in the heart, how's your squirrel hunting? And then describe your last arrest.
Oh, this is like a question that you guys ask everybody?
Yeah. Somewhat.
How's my squirrel hunting?
Such an insight.
I don't, To be honest with you, I don't even know how to shoot a gun. I got the fly rod in my hand so much, I have a home security shotgun. I need someone to come show me how to use a gun. I don't even know how to load it. I'm not a hunter at all. I hunt trout. So I don't know, I'd have to trap the squirrel. Lure him over with music and then squash him. What's the other question?
Describe your last arrest.
Oh, actually, how did that happen? Hold on. I got arrested twice when I was in high school, actually, and spent 2 nights on the stair. Oh, it was really dumb, though. It wasn't like anything cool, like I murdered someone. The computer system, the Dallas police glitched my license and said it was suspended. And I'm 16 years old, and I'm driving my girlfriend around town, and I get pulled over, and they're like, step out of the car and like put your hands behind your back, and they arrested me. This happened twice. They told her to drive the car home.
But you met your wife when you were 12.
This is a different girl. I didn't date my wife. No. I didn't date my wife until I was 25. I knew her since I was 12. So anyway, I got hauled off to the Lysteria and spent 2 full nights because this happened twice. It was just a computer glitch. My dad lost his mind though. So I think that's the only time I've been arrested. Yeah. You guys have been arrested a lot?
Just John.
You guys don't look like people that get arrested a lot. Yes, sir.
We can order a drink from up here if you want one.
I am pure club soda Casamigos for lime. Preferably.
Carl, did you hear that? Club soda, Casamigos, and lime. And a Maker's if they got one.
Go ahead.
So,
Oh, he did have a question.
so 2 questions. You talked about the cause that you support. Hypothetically speaking, if that wasn't a thing, what would be kind of next on your list of causes to support? And then the second question is, what's the coolest business in deep Ellum besides Warstic that we should support just because they're awesome?
Patagonia is the coolest business in Deep Ellum. That's my favorite brand, and I want them to stay. So I'd like you to support them.
Would Patagonia like your clothing?
Yeah.
And Deep Ellum?
We have a Patagonia in Deep Ellum.
It's kind of awesome.
It's crazy because it's a giant queue that shopping can happen in Deep Ellum. And so, mostly it's restaurants right now. There's not a lot of retail, so I want to see more retail. I love the Patagonia thing. It's like all day at the other end, so I'm hoping that it fill in. Because with Warstic kind of emerging in Patagonia, I'm hoping that it attracts more. I mean, God knows we don't need another restaurant in Dallas. That's all we do. We have 1 million. So it's cool that we have them down there, but I want to see more retail and shopping. Like there's neighborhoods in California that I see, like in Venice. Some amazing neighborhoods of like alternative shopping. Man, North Park's badass, don't get me wrong, but like I would like to see some shoppings, some segments of shopping that are cool neighborhoods that you can go down there and hang out and get your coffee and all that kind of thing. Deep Ellum has that potential, for sure. We had a murder there the other day, but who doesn't? People are still scared of it a little bit, and on Saturday nights it still gets pretty rowdy, but there's a place called Deep Ellum Denim that's really cool. Patagonia. Please don't let the Patagonia go away. And you had another question.
Yeah, you talked about the
Oh, another cause that I would go for? We do, like on military holidays, we go right to supporting military veterans because Travis Mills, you guys know who Travis Mills is? Like he's one of only 4 surviving quadriplegics. He got blew up by a bomb, which will tell you he has no arms and legs. And it'll make you feel like the most lazy human ever. He's like, oh, you're complaining, and he's just living his life, man, and it's crazy. So he's actually one of my investors. So I'm gonna support the veterans at all times, and I got a huge amount of respect for that. So I think that would be easily the main cause if this wasn't, They don't really go together well, but it's fine. But actually, I'll tell you my interesting native fact. I don't know how to say this right, but like, as far as a race of people, is that right? A nationality. More natives have served per capita in the military than any race that we have, because it's in their blood to be warriors. So like, natives are there's a lot of military veterans that are super proud native people, and it's a weird thing. You think about it, they got defeated, taken over, almost near mass genocide, but like their mindset is to join forces and fight. So like, the military is a great source, the US military is a great source of pride for most of Native America, which is something that most people don't really figure. So there's actually some causes that we support that support Native military veterans. So I would say that's kind of the best of the best, you know? So, anywho, I don't see any natives in here, guys, not gonna lie. Any other questions? Any other uncomfortable questions? No? Is that it? Can we go home now?
All right, well, thank you so much. Little small token from us.
What? Presents? Oh, thanks,
Presents.
man. Nice.
Uh,
I'll use the crap out of that.
Coffee, koozie, I've been told.
Lovely design.
So really appreciate the time tonight. Great story. Love what you're doing, so thank you for the time tonight. We'll stick around as long as y'all want to. Let's see, any other announcements? Anybody forgot?
No meeting tomorrow.
No meeting tomorrow. Please don't show back up tomorrow. We're done for tonight. So seeing that, y'all have a great weekend.